everyone. This is Faith at Faith and Books. How are you doing? I am on my way to run some errands. It's Saturday morning, November 24th. So I was just thinking about how much I really like November. I mean, once the election was over, that was pretty tumultuous. And that happened on our wedding anniversary. I've been married 36 years now, and we basically did nothing for our 36th wedding anniversary. Usually we go away. But I mean, we've been doing that since our kids were old enough to watch themselves, and we could go away to a bed and breakfast. But we didn't do that this year. It really got ignored. Anyway, I guess eventually that happens if you've been married for that long. Anyway, but the rest of November we have several birthdays and then Thanksgiving, and I really love Thanksgiving. And I'm hosting this year. I usually host. There's a lot of cars suddenly entering this parking lot. I'm at a park. Anyway, we're going to have 19 people for Thanksgiving. And then I've decided I invited people to a little wine and cheese people from my church. I've never done this before. This is an experiment. We'll see how it goes. And then on then we have Christmas, people visiting and stuff, the whole Christmas thing. And then New Year's Day, I'm once again hosting my extended family's holiday party, which we have on New Year's Day. And the theme is Narnia. So I've been getting really into figuring out how I'm going to decorate the house for a Narnia theme, which made me... at first, I really wanted to do a Katie at Books and Things Dickens read-along of all the Christmas novellas that Dickens wrote. However, I am reading Nicholas Nickley right now, and I don't know if I can do more Dickens on top of that. And I decided that I really want to finish the Narnia series. I have not read the last 3 books. So I want to reread The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. My husband and I watched the movie recently, which is very well done. But I want to reread that, and then I want to read the last 3 books of the Narnia series. So that's kind of going to be my Christmas reading, besides just trying to finish up stuff that I want to finish up before the end of the year. So anyway, so that's not what I want to talk about right now. Right now, I'm just going to do a little review of The Battle of the White Horse by G.K. Chesterton. And I'll show you my really nice, this is like cloth bound, and it's got these really nice kind of woodblock illustrations in it. Let me show you the sun. I probably should have parked in a better spot. And even the print kind of, can you see the print? It's kind of reminiscent of medieval script. So this was far more accessible than I thought it would be. I bought this book. I can't even remember when I bought this book. It has sat on my shelf for years. And I decided that this was going to be the poet for the month of November. So way back in January, I decided I was going to do a poet a month. I have not been that consistent about it, but I was for this one. And earlier in the year also, I read The Life of King Alfred so that I could understand this, because it's the story of King Alfred. So it's very beautifully written. I really loved his poetic style. It reminded me of Sir Walter Scott. It's very high and romantic, and I enjoyed it very much. Even if I didn't understand everything, I understood enough that I got the gist of the story, and I could be really kind of awed by the wordplay and, the depths he can convey. But what's really sweet about this, oh, here comes somebody, they're going to park right next to me. What's really sweet about this is that he dedicates this book to his wife. And I thought I'd read a little bit, but it's a little awkward, people getting out here. I wonder what's going on here this morning. I thought it was going to be alone in this parking lot, but I guess not. Wait a second, I want my coffee. I got water and coffee here. Okay, I don't know what these people are doing. I'm going to read anyway. I'm not going to be self-conscious. Okay, so what happened was he wrote this poem about the great battle that King Alfred fought, and apparently was in a place called Ethandune. And it must be a Cub Scout thing. It's a lot of boys. And so apparently he and his wife went to visit the site of where the battle was, and that's what inspired them, inspired him. So let me just read this, and you'll get just a sense of his style. Do you remember when we went under a dragon moon, mid volcanic tints of night, walked where they fought the unknown fight, and saw black trees on the battle height, black thorn on Ethandune? And I thought, I will go with you, as man with God has gone, and wander with the wandering star, the wandering heart of things that are, the fiery cross of love and war, that like yourself goes on. And I'm going to skip a couple verses, and then up through an empty house of stars, being what heart you are, up the inhuman steeps of space, as on a staircase go in grace, carrying the firelight on your face, beyond the loneliest star. Take these in memory of the hour we strayed a space from home, and saw the smoke-hued hamlets quaint, with Westland king and Westland saint, and watched the western glory faint along the road to Frome. So that's the end of the dedication to his wife. So then the poem starts off where King Alfred, so the story of King Alfred is that he was the youngest of maybe 5 sons, and each of his older brothers had been king for a short while. And so finally the king, and all of them, they all died, and he becomes king finally. And the Danes have taken over most of England. And so he's fighting for Wessex. And he's desperate because the odds are really against them. And so they're kind of sunk in defeat, and then King Alfred has this vision. And the vision is of Mary appearing to him. The Virgin Mary appears to him. Now, I don't quite understand this, because Chesterton wrote this, I think it was 17 years before he converted to Catholicism. But was he, I don't know if he was really a believer before that, or I tend to think that the reason why he does this with the Virgin Mary is because he's talking about medieval times, right? And they were Catholic, and they did have a veneration of Mary. And so I think that's why this happened. Is this a real legend? If anybody's British and knows this, is there a legend that King Alfred had a vision of the Virgin Mary? Anyway, he has this vision. So in book 1, he has this vision that Mary will help him. So it's really beautifully written. Okay, let me read the first 3 lines, or maybe not lines, verses. The Ballad of the White Horse. Before the gods that made the gods had seen their sunrise pass, the white horse of the White Horse Vale was cut out of the grass. And what he's referring to is in England, let me see, there was a photo of it. Like prehistoric England, they cut the form of a horse out of a hillside. You see? So he's referring to that. But I think, and it's so funny that this happened, I think he's connecting it with the white horse of the apocalypse. And I'm just reading about Revelation, or the book of Apocalypse. And at the end, Jesus comes out on a white horse to destroy all evil, right? To win the final battle between good and evil. And so I think he's kind of using the white horse that happens to be in England, like literally cut into the earth of England. And it's kind of a reference, I think, to the white horse of the apocalypse, that finally wins, that good wins over evil. Before the gods that made the gods had drunk at dawn their fill, the white horse of the White Horse Vale was hoary on the hill. Age beyond age on British land, eons on eons gone, was peace and war in western hills, and the white horse looked on. For the white horse knew England, when there was none to know. He saw the first oar break or bend. He saw heaven fall and the world end. Oh God, how long ago? So he's talking about the wars and Rome falling and all that stuff. Anyway, so that's And so he's talking about the Danes coming and how terrible the situation is for Alfred. And then Alfred has this wonderful vision of the Mother of God, and she comes to encourage him. And so that causes him to go off and gather chiefs, the remaining people that can still be his allies and help him. And the three main ones are Colin, who I think is Welsh, and Mark, or Marcus, who's Roman, and Eldred. And I don't know who Eldred, I don't remember who Eldred was. Maybe he was Anglo-Saxon. So he goes and travels to each of these chiefs and asks them to meet him at a particular place at some point. So that goes on. And then the next book is The Harp of Alfred. This one was really neat in that it reminded me a little bit of that scene in Henry V, where he disguises himself and he walks among his men to hear. But that's not really what happens here. What happens is somehow, and I couldn't figure out whether they knew he was King Alfred or they just thought he was a harpist. He takes his harp and he goes into the army of the Danes, and the big general of the Dane that he was fighting was Guthrum. And he's actually in their camp talking to them, finding out, what they think about things, and just seeing how the enemy works and talking to them about it. And it's really becomes a discussion between Christianity and the Great Heathen Army, which is what they called in history. The British called the Danes that were fighting them at that time the Great Heathen Army. So it really becomes this, good versus evil battle. And then the battle starts. Oh, no, it doesn't. So he goes to meet these guys, and he's walking, and he's very distracted by everything that's going on in this battle that's going to have to take place. And this is the story of when he burns the cakes, which I had heard of, this story, where he goes into this hut, and this woman, he's all bedraggled. She doesn't realize he's King Alfred. And she tells him to watch the cakes in the... Oh, let me turn off my... She tells him to watch the cakes so that they don't burn, so she can go out and, I don't know, milk the cow or something like that. And then he's so deep in thought that he lets them burn, and she comes in and she hits him because he ruined the cakes. And at first he's stunned, and then he realizes she doesn't know who he is. And I think he's maybe watching the cakes there. But it shows his humility and his thoughtfulness, and he laughs at himself. He laughs at the whole situation, the absurdity of the whole situation. He's getting ready to go into this battle to basically defend this woman's land, and she hits. And then book 5, 6, and 7 are all about the battles. So this one really, since I just read the Aeneid earlier in the year, it really kind of reminded me of the Aeneid. And there was one thing I really didn't like about is that he almost makes the Virgin Mary like Venus was to Aeneas. The Virgin Mary is kind of to him, which I don't know. I don't know if I buy into that. That makes me a little uncomfortable. But yeah, so he goes into the battles, and it's pretty gory, and you see how each of the generals falls, and everything is going really, really badly. It's quite detailed. But then in book 7, when all his generals have been slain, and they're starting to run, he notices that the Danes kind of slack. They think they've won the battle, and so they kind of slack off. And at that point, Mary encourages him, and so he turns and he gathers the remaining, and they charge and they win. He does win the battle, and historically he won the battle. And I think one thing that Chesterton really believes in is defending your homeland. Your home is precious to you, and you defend your homeland. And so I could agree with that idea that, you have a right to defend yourself. And that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to defend themselves from the Danes who had invaded and were trying to take over the country. And especially they wanted their Christian way of life, and it would be threatened under the Danes. So that's one point. Now, there was another point I was going to make. Maybe it'll come to me as I'm talking. I don't want to make this too long. It's already 15 minutes. Anyway, so then, I know what I was going to say. So this was published in 1911, and it felt so romantic to me. Just all these noble things about war. And he's very much steeped in the classics, I think, but also it was before World War I, too, which to me is what started the 20th century, was World War I, when we saw just how horrible war could be. And then it continues there was the Depression, and then World War II, which showed how even more horrible war could be, and how horrible humans could be. And communism and all that stuff, all those genocides and things. And so there's a naivete about this, and a romanticized vision of war that I think that when I was reading, I thought this must be before World War I, and it was. So there's something about the depiction of war that I found kind of innocent or something. Anyway, and then the last chapter, or whatever, does he call it a chapter? Book. Talks about how Alfred won, and it was great, but the rest of England still was under control of the Danes. So they were always a menace. And then late in his reign, he had to go back out and fight them again. And Chesterton points out that the war is actually never over until, I'm interpreting the part about Revelation, that it's ongoing. And he's saying, even in our time, we have to fight the great heathen army, because it's always out there, and we always have to be ready to do battle. Good always has to be ready to battle evil. It was a very good, it was a very enjoyable read. I was pleasantly surprised by it. It has a real charm to it, and I felt like I was learning a lot of history. Here's a picture of the great man himself. And the notes in this were really good. They were really informative and well done. So can you see that? So anyway, I enjoyed this very much. I'm glad that I finally read it. I mean, it's really it's one of those bucket list things for me. And then there's a great bibliography back here, a reference section. I did some research online, and I will try. I'm not going to link to it, but I found a very good article analyzing this, and it was written by an evangelical guy who is part of the G.K. Chesterton Society down south somewhere, maybe Georgia or something. And he wrote an article, maybe it was back in, 2016, something like that. I can't remember. I'm not going to link to it, but I'll give you the information so that you can Google it if you want to read it. It's a long article, but it was an interesting take on it. I don't think I agreed with everything he was saying, but it was really insightful. I thought it was really insightful. I don't like to link to things because once I linked to something and YouTube got mad at me because the link went bad, got some virus or something. And I was told that if I did that again, I don't know, I'd lose my YouTube privileges or something. And I had nothing to do with it. I just linked to a place that I'd gone to many times before, but somehow it got corrupted. And so anyway, I don't know how to deal with the authorities at YouTube, so appealing stuff. Anyway, so I'm just going to put information in, and you can link to the article if you want to. All right, so I've gone on, so long. I'm so sorry. Okay, so I will talk to you later. I'm probably not going to make another video until it's December, because it's just too busy the next week or 10 days. So, okay, talk to you later. Take care. Happy reading.